I'd long imagined love sneaking in like a soft spring wind, whispering past without much notice, grazing the skin and spirit ever so lightly. Yet the moment I crossed paths with Ethan Vance, it hit me that love can crash through like a thunderclap, lighting up every shadowed part of your world in an instant. I'm Chloe Thorne, studying languages and literature at Georgia State University in Atlanta. Before then, my life ticked along predictably. Classroom hours, a part-time job, and endless rides on the Marcia train. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind where fatigue weighs heavy after nonstop note-taking and lectures. I climbed aboard the bus, backpack slung over one shoulder, and an old cloth toad in hand, eyes glued to the ground hoping the journey would blur by until my stop. That's when a rich, inviting voice broke through. "Here, take my spot." I glanced up, and there he stood, tall and solidly built, clad in a sleek gray coat that evoked high-end European style amid the chaos of central Atlanta. His grin was effortless and welcoming, so captivating that my thanks came out in a whisper as I sank into the seat. You'd expect him to grab his phone and tune out, but instead, he lingered nearby, gripping the overhead bar. I sensed his gaze on me, intrigued. "You don't seem local," he remarked softly, with a hint of reserve. I blinked, caught off guard, then replied, "I'm a student at GSU." He nodded as if it all clicked. "That makes sense," he added with a subtle curve to his lips, holding my eyes just long enough to make me feel seen, without any pressure. I returned the smile without thinking. He chuckled lightly, and the warmth in that sound eased something deep within me. From there, we chatted the entire route about trivial stuff. Secret cafes, the vibe of Little 5 Points, spots in parks perfect for wandering on lazy Sundays, and Georgia's unpredictable climate that might chill you at dawn and swelter by midday. Strangers rarely drew me out, but with him, conversation poured effortlessly. He actually seemed to hang on my words. As the bus pulled up to my stop, I rose to slip back into my routine solitude, but his call stopped me. "Hold on, could I get your number? I'd love to meet up again." Usually I'd decline. I didn't hand out my digits to just anyone. But his look, the way he made me feel singular amid the packed crowd, prompted a simple, "Yeah." I jotted it down, fingers quivering a bit. That very night, my phone buzzed with his message, and the next evening, I stood outside a swanky spot lit by golden fixtures, luxury rides lining the curb, a venue I'd never pictured myself entering. I hesitated, adjusting my basic black dress, pulse racing. Then Ethan emerged, beaming that same radiant smile from the bus, offering his hand like he'd been counting the moments. Under those glowing lights and with valets hovering, I sensed I was stepping into unfamiliar territory. But as he greeted me with a gentle kiss to my hand, old world charm, and murmured, "You look stunning," my doubts melted away. In that elegant space of sparkling glassware and polished cutlery, I suddenly felt like the one he'd been seeking all along. The meal unfolded as a string of delights. Ethan selected a wine whose label tripped over my tongue, doing so with effortless poise that left me off balance. No boasting involved. He was just opening up pieces of his world as naturally as drawing breath. He shared tales of his European upbringing, his adoptive folks, Julian and Meredith Vance, who divided their days between Manhattan and Monaco, jetting off to art shows. His tone held no vanity, just an honesty that held me rapt. And when he turned the questions to me, my GSU courses, my background, my aspirations, it came with a focus that unraveled my guard. Strolling to his car after, a realization dawned. I craved more time with him. What began as a chance bus encounter quickly filled every nook of my routine. The weeks ahead turned into a chain of quiet wonders. Ethan texted good morning before my alarm could chime, and good night well past my bedtime. On my toughest days, he'd appear at the campus gate with steaming coffee in hand. When pressure built up, he'd coax laughs from me until troubles faded. One evening, he arrived at my place bearing a bunch of blooms. No special occasion, he shrugged, like the thought alone sufficed. Our outings grew in number. Library cramming stretched into deep talks that lasted ages. Strolls through downtown Atlanta wrapped up with giggles beneath the urban glow. Saturdays in Piedmont Park sparked spontaneous escapades. And during those late-night phone calls, we'd chat on and on until the sun peeked over the horizon, sometimes barely speaking, just soaking in each other's quiet breaths. Ethan had this way of making me feel truly special, like I stood out in a sea of countless students, not just another face in the crowd. That sense of being truly noticed and appreciated started chipping away at the barriers I'd erected around myself over time to shield my heart. One night, out on the balcony of his downtown place, with Atlanta's twinkling lights stretching below us like a starry sea, he reached for my hand and said offhandedly, "I'd love for you to meet my folks. They'll be thrilled that I've met someone who means so much." I went quiet, caught off guard by the pace of it all, even as a spark of excitement flickered inside me. Bringing in the family felt like a big step. Really. "We haven't been at this long," he interrupted with that assured grin of his. "Believe me, Chloe, you're one of a kind." Right then, those words hit me deep, showing me just how desperately I'd craved them. It was like the real adventure was kicking off, and everything in my world was about to shift forever. To grasp why Ethan stormed into my days like some kind of savior, I need to rewind and share a bit about where I came from. I was raised in a straightforward part of Atlanta, where the blocks buzzed with energy and folks knew your business better than you'd like. My little universe was compact yet genuine, shaped by my mom, Donna Thorne, who had a knack for making every cent count like a wizard with her budget. Dad bailed when I was still a kid. No phone calls, no notes, no regrets. Just a void at the table and a thick quiet hanging around. Mom never badmouthed him, but I caught the way her eyes would sharpen if his name came up. She put in endless shifts at the local Kroger, ringing up groceries or filling aisles, whatever it took to keep our plates full. Her resilience was quiet, yet rock solid. My big sister Brianna was the one I looked up to most. A few years ahead of me, she carried herself with poise and assurance. As a kid, she shone on the dance floor, and her shows always mesmerized the crowd into silence. She'd scooped up awards, landed gigs on different platforms, and envisioned heading to New York to chase a stage career. Seeing her move was like watching pure freedom. No wings required. Then tragedy struck. On a stormy evening, a reckless driver skidded out, and the crash robbed Brianna not just of her leg's full strength, but of her dancing dreams too. The docs preserved the leg, sure, but the ache lingered, and her steps never regained their grace. She pushed to keep at it, holding tight to what she loved, but in the end, reality won out. And to pile on the hurt, her fiancé walked away not long after. He softened it with cliches. "It's not you, it's me. I just can't deal." But the harsh fact, he couldn't picture a future with someone who no longer twirled across stages. I saw Brianna dim bit by bit. She quit stepping out, lost her spark, stopped dreaming of what lay ahead, the very tomorrow she'd once gripped so surely. She barricaded herself in her space, tunes blasting through earbuds, cutting off the outside world like it had zilch for her anymore. That scar stayed with her, and it etched into me as well. I started viewing romance with caution, as something sharp that could lift you up or shatter you in a flash. That's the reason I'd spent years layering unseen defenses around my emotions, when Ethan's charming grin and soothing tone showed up. But no fortress lasts forever. One day, as I pitched in with Mom in the kitchen, Donna paused her stirring and eyed me thoughtfully. "You've been lighting up more these days," she noted, her voice a mix of suspicion and warmth. I chuckled and admitted it. "True, Mom, I've met someone." She locked eyes with me, pondering, then let out a breath and added steadily, "Protect that heart of yours, Chloe. It's priceless, more than you know." Her advice echoed in my mind through the days that followed. I spilled it to my roommate, who scrunched her face rather than cheering. "Hear me out," she whispered like we were plotting. If they chat in French, act clueless. I burst out laughing, figuring she was overdoing it. I only grasped the rudiments from a required course. But she pressed on. Folks let slip secrets assuming you won't catch on. Play it cool. Grin and go along. Come that next Saturday, Ethan swung by to grab me in his ride. The drive twisted past leafy avenues into a posher zone, where Atlanta morphed into something elegant and distant. The Vance estate could have graced the pages of a design magazine. Crisp contemporary angles, expansive panes glowing softly, spare art pieces dotting the grounds. My pulse raced, a blend of jitters and wonder. Meredith Vance welcomed us right at the entrance. She was elegant and poised, with a slim figure, her silver hair neatly tied in a flawless chignon, wearing a gown that radiated simple sophistication. She welcomed me with light kisses on both cheeks, offering a warm yet polite smile. But there was a subtle spark in her gaze, a hint of curiosity I couldn't fully grasp. Julian stepped out from behind her, a stern-faced gentleman in an impeccably tailored suit, his piercing stare prompting me to stand a bit taller right away. The dining table resembled a scene from a masterpiece, with silverware sparkling in the soft glow of candles, crystal stemware neatly positioned, and dishes artfully placed. We took our seats, and for a brief while, it all unfolded like a scene from a film. Civil inquiries about my schooling, gracious remarks on Atlanta, Ethan casually clasping my hand to signal that I fit right in. Still, under that flawless facade, lurked an odd undercurrent, as though each action had been scripted, the friendliness merely a glossy veneer. I stuck to courteous replies, selecting my words with precision, my grin locked in place. All the same, my mind drifted back to my roommate's caution. Things progressed seamlessly until midway through the suites, when Meredith angled her head slightly toward her spouse and uttered a quiet phrase in French. Suddenly, the vibe in the room altered, like a hidden curtain descending across the space. Her gentle whisper blended with the tinkling of cutlery. She used French, likely assuming I couldn't follow. Yet my roommate's alert flashed in my thoughts, and the basic French from my university days sufficed to let those terms stab through me sharply. Elle croit elle, n'est-ce pas? She doesn't know why we need her, does she? Color faded from my cheeks. My pulse raced wildly as if desperate to break free. But I held my composure steady, my smile unwavering, feigning ignorance of every sound. I gulped down the lump in my throat, clutching the table's rim to steady my trembling fingers. Ethan responded in French too, his tone hushed yet distinct. No elan, no, she doesn't know anything. It felt like the ground was crumbling underfoot. My breathing quickened, and I focused on stirring my utensil to mask my dismay. Meredith lifted her glass with poise and switched back to English, her perfect smile unchanged, praising my outfit and inquiring nicely about my GSU courses. The evening carried on as though undisturbed. Julian inclined his head occasionally, polite but somewhat aloof. Ethan, right beside me, gave my hand a soft squeeze, aiming to convey comfort, unaware that it now served as a painful echo of the overheard exchange. I offered short responses, my tone just even, amid a torrent of uncertainties swirling within. Why were they seeking me out? What lay behind that covert talk amid sips of wine and calculated grins? The meal blurred into a hazy rush. The flavor of the treat, the floral centerpiece, the cozy illumination, all faded into irrelevance, leaving me feeling ensnared in a performance where I alone lacked the lines. At last, following the formal farewells and Meredith's grin, which struck me as more eerie than welcoming, we departed the estate. The crisp evening breeze struck me squarely, allowing my first real inhale. Ethan held the car door open and regarded me affectionately. "So, what was your take on them?" he inquired, firing up the motor. "They're quite refined," I said guardedly, picking terms like navigating shards. He chuckled lightly. "Yeah, they might come off as daunting, but it's not aimed at you. They've dwelled in a vastly different realm for years. I murmured agreement, gazing at the blurring lights beyond the glass. I projected calm, but inwardly, that sentence looped relentlessly, an unquenchable refrain. She doesn't know why we need her. That evening, as I settled into bed, I realized a kernel of dread had taken hold inside. I had no idea when it might sprout or the shadows it would spawn, but the process had already started. 2 weeks following that meal with the Vances, as the French snippet still haunted my thoughts, Ethan showed up at my place wearing a relaxed grin and a surprising suggestion. "We're getting away this weekend," he announced, lounging against my counter. "I've booked a lodge by Lake Oconee, only us. Time to unwind." On the surface, it seemed ideal. Clean breezes, quietude, a retreat from urban clamor, and the lingering unease from that supper. Yet a faint reluctance stirred in me, a hesitation he picked up on. Ethan drew near, cradling my cheeks in his palms, eyes soft. "You've seemed wound up these days, Chloe. Let me look after you. It'll help, I swear." I agreed with a nod, urging myself that he might be correct, that I was overthinking. The journey proved scenic, the road winding past verdant slopes and blooming meadows, swaying gently in the breeze. Ethan was behind the wheel, at ease, softly singing along to a melody as I stared out at the distant skyline. In those instants, the anxiety faded away, and I almost convinced myself that things were as straightforward as he'd claimed. The lodge appeared like something from a travel brochure, constructed from timber and rock, featuring a veranda encircling the building and panes that mirrored the evening glow across the pond. Right from the doorway, the lake sparkled in hues of gold, and the crisp atmosphere carried scents of fir trees and moist soil. Ethan slipped his arm around my waist and declared with excitement, "Look, it's ideal for the two of us." The interior was all set up. Plush carpets covered the floors, a hearth prepared for kindling, and the cooking area filled with supplies. Ethan popped open a flask of crimson wine, pouring it into a pair of goblets, and raising one with a captivating grin. "To our future," he said quietly, his gaze shimmering in the cozy illumination. We prepared a meal side by side, chuckled, and briefly I felt my uncertainties had vanished. Yet I realized that whenever my drink was halfway gone, he'd top it off without a word. I sipped on, preoccupied and confiding, until a warmth in my skull shifted into vertigo. "Ethan, I'm exhausted," I muttered, my speech heavy, the syllables stumbling from my mouth. He appeared right away, guiding me to recline on the couch with an oddly soothing touch. "Rest now, sweetheart. Take it easy." He breathed in an odd manner, far too composed, far too distant. Oblivion overtook me before I could fight it. I came to with a throbbing ache in my forehead and an icy chill seeping into my spine. The ground under me wasn't the cushioned couch in the den, but a slick cement slab. I attempted to shift, but my wrists were secured behind my back, the coarse cords chafing my flesh. The atmosphere reeked of moisture and corroded iron. A lone bulb dangled overhead, throwing a harsh amber light across the stark surfaces. Terror struck me so intensely that my breath caught in my chest. "Ethan," I whispered hoarsely, my mouth parched. Then he emerged gradually from the staircase. His expression was peaceful, nearly affectionate, yet something in his stare froze my veins. "Chloe, it's not clear to you yet, but it will be," he stated, dropping to his knees before me. In a disturbingly mild way, he swept a strand of hair aside from my cheek. "This will transform everything for you. Before long, you'll be grateful to me." His declarations sliced into me like blades. I stared at him in anguish, struggling to grasp how the fellow who'd brightened my routine with blooms and joy was now regarding me like a pawn in some sinister scheme. My pulse raced fiercely, threatening to shatter within my ribcage. The first wave of fright evolved into something deeper, an urgent drive to endure. I had no clue what Ethan desired or the reason for his talk of a destiny I couldn't fathom. But one truth stood out. Unless I discovered a means to break free, I'd never return home. Down in that cellar, time appeared to halt. My gasps echoed sharply off the empty barriers, and each passing minute with my limbs restrained amplified the sting in my arms. I twisted against the bindings repeatedly until the friction irritated my skin raw. Urgency compelled me to examine every nook, searching for any potential aid. That's when my eyes caught it, a corroded spike protruding from the timber by the rear exit. I crawled along the floor on all fours, suppressing a cry each time the cord bit harder into me. I pressed my fastened wrist to the spike and started sawing clumsily at the outset, then with more force, disregarding the hurt. No progress. Perspiration dripped from my brow, mingling with tears born of dread. I persisted, grinding my jaw until the sweetest noise rang out, a fiber of the cord snapping. One more push, one more rasp, and at last, one wrist broke loose. With shaky digits, I untied the remaining one and then my feet. Circulation returned gradually, throbbing with acute discomfort. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, so loud I feared Ethan might detect it from above. I glanced toward the steps, lit by the overhead fixture, and realized ascending them meant certain doom. The sole escape was the narrow pane close to the top. Straining, I forced it ajar until it groaned open. The chill evening breeze slapped my features, rekindling a spark of vitality. I wriggled through the gap, abrading my limbs on the jagged edges, and tumbled outward onto the soggy ground. No hesitation, I bolted. Twigs lashed at my cheeks and elbows. My steps faltered on hidden stumps, but I pressed on relentlessly. My lungs heaved deafeningly, and in the distance, Ethan's call pierced the quiet darkness. "Chloe, halt! This isn't what it seems." His pleas pursued me like daggers. But rather than halting my pace, they spurred me onward. The forest stretched infinitely, each silhouette a peril, each snap of underbrush the sign of his nearing pursuit. Frenzy drove me until, abruptly, a gleam appeared amid the foliage. Another shelter. I lunged toward it using my final bursts of energy, tripping on a path and crashing down. The agony in my legs ripped a yell from my throat, but I stumbled forward unsteadily, pushing on despite the dizziness until I made it to the entrance. I pounded desperately on the wood with my knuckles, my cries frantic. "Help! Someone please help!" Suddenly, the door swung wide, revealing a broad-shouldered figure in the threshold, flanked by a snarling canine with rippling tension in its frame, poised to lunge. "What the hell is happening?" the stranger demanded, his tone low and vigilant. "My boyfriend. He slipped something in my drink, bound me tight. He's coming after me," I gasped out amid heaving sobs, my cheeks wet with endless tears, terror spilling from my lips. Without a moment's pause, the man commanded, "Duke, stay alert." The dog bolted into the shadows, its barks echoing wildly. Far off, a stifled swear cut through the air, followed by fading steps. The fellow steadied me with a strong grip and drew me inside the shelter, securing the latch. "Name's Marcus Sterling. You'll be okay now." He led me to a faded leather seat. My frame shook uncontrollably, the trauma gripping me hard. Marcus grabbed his cell and punched in numbers swiftly, alerting the local sheriff's office. His delivery was steady and precise, the mark of experience in crises. After ending the call, he draped a cover over me. "Easy now, Chloe, it's behind you." I longed to trust his words, yet my pulse raced like molten heat through my blood. Beyond the walls, Duke patrolled vigilantly, while I curled up in this strange haven, struggling to grasp that I'd slipped free from horror. Soon, the wail of approaching sirens shattered the quiet dark. Rescue and officials loomed near, maybe even real security. Yet deep down, Meredith's words lingered like venom. "She has no clue what we want her for. That evening, though the sheriff enveloped me in warmth and vowed my safety, I realized the peace was just a thin veil, a brief respite amid the dread I'd endured, and the burden of secrets still hidden. The station buzzed under harsh overhead glows that felt icily remote. They bundled me in fresh linen and handed over steaming liquid, but my fingers quivered too fiercely to grasp the mug. A gentle-featured cop urged me to inhale steadily and noted, "Detective Patel's eager to get the full account from the start." Shortly after, a sharp-eyed woman stepped in, clutching a pad and gripping a writing tool. "Is Sir Detective Patel here?" she stated calmly, her words slicing through. "Chloe, tonight's been rough, I get it, but walk me through every detail you recall." I forced down a lump and launched into it, from the random bus meeting, the early outings, the moments that built my faith in Ethan, right up to the meal at the Vance estate, tossing in that French line I'd feigned ignorance of. I recounted it all, word for word, including the reply. No, she hasn't figured it out. Exhausted by the end, I slumped. The detective paused briefly, then shut her notes with a decisive click. "This lines up with what we've pieced together," she said softly. I edged closer, bewildered. "Pieced together? What's that mean?" Patel met my stare squarely. "The Vances have been on our radar for months. We believe they're tied to a global scam ring. They front as aid experts promising tycoons the whereabouts of vanished kin, kids, successors, the disappeared. They raked in massive fees, yet often handed over groomed fakes." My breath hitched. "Fakes just like I'd been cast as," she affirmed with gravity. "Your likeness to Warren Ashford's vanished girl, a global tech titan, is uncanny. He's frantic to reclaim her, ready to foot any bill. Ethan won you over, hooked you deep, so they'd slot you in as Ashford's prodigal with forged papers. It would have fooled everyone." A icy shiver pierced me. So he never cared. The admission escaped hoarse and faint. "Reality stings, Chloe," Patel responded. "But Ethan marked you as prey. To him, you were merely a cog in a fortune scheme." Nausea twisted my gut. Visions of the guy who charmed me with blooms at campus blended sickeningly with the brute who'd restrained me in gloom. Later that day, updates rolled in. Julian and Meredith Vance were nabbed at a secluded airstrip, moments from a Monaco getaway. Their bags yielded phony IDs, shady fun shifts, and shots of me under a false label. Ethan was tracked to a derelict storage on Atlanta's edge. Captured, he seemed eerily composed, almost accepting. Officers uncovered a satchel in the Lake A1 retreat. It held cords, knockout drugs, and worst of all, a travel document bearing my image, but etched with alien script in gilded font. Clutching it, revulsion prickled my flesh. That was the fate they'd scripted, vanishing as Chloe, reborn as another. I was nothing more than a fabricated specter, designed to dupe a man gripped by despair. As the truth unraveled, a profound divide gripped me. Justice had prevailed. The perpetrators were in custody, their schemes dismantled. Yet on the flip side lingered an unseen scar, the harsh reality that I'd poured my faith and feelings into someone who viewed me as mere property. When Detective Patel reassured me of my security and warned that Ethan and his parents would confront grave criminal indictments, I managed only a faint acknowledgement, for while retribution had come, a fresh struggle ignited within, one of adapting to the aftermath, to the treachery that wounded far beyond the flesh. The weeks after Ethan and the Vances' apprehension melted into a haze of disorientation. Despite constant assurances of my protection, my physique refused to accept it. Each evening, I'd jolt awake soaked in perspiration, certain I remained confined in that cellar with bound wrists and a swinging bulb overhead. A hinge's groan or a latch's click sufficed to spike my pulse, as though he lurked nearby in ambush. Night terrors weren't my sole affliction. By daylight, trivial triggers summoned the terror anew. The aroma of wine churned my gut. Spotting a slate jacket on the sidewalk prompted a frantic whirl. It seemed Ethan haunted every crevice of my existence. My mom, Donna, resorted to her familiar remedy, preparing meals. Our fridge brimmed with casseroles, broths, and sweets that scarcely registered on my palate. Her weary gaze met mine, short on consoling phrases to mend the damage inflicted, yet she infused boundless affection into each creation. One midday, while ladling hot soup into a mug, she clasped my fingers. "Sweetheart, I can't undo your ordeal, but remember this home is your sanctuary forever. No matter the fear or the ache, I'm right here." Her sentiment unleashed sobs from me like those of a little one, reminding me that amid a perilous world, my mother endured as my haven. Brianna tackled it differently. She perched on my bed's corner one afternoon, expression grave. "Chloe, I get that you're shattered. I was there once, post-crash after Dance slipped away and that guy abandoned me. I figured my world had ended. The hurts weren't on the surface, but they devoured me from within. Yours differs, yet I grasp the agony." She met my eyes, stifling her own moisture. "We might not wipe away our histories, but we can shed the blame that's not ours." Her insight struck a chord profoundly. Suddenly, the shadows felt less isolating. My sibling and I linked through hidden wounds, distinct but bearing identical burdens. Then came Marcus Sterling. Initially, his visits were brief check-ins on my well-being. Gradually, though, he turned into a steady fixture. He spoke sparingly. Instead, he joined me on the veranda, his pup Duke sprawled below us, vigilant as a quiet sentinel. That serenity offered greater solace than speeches ever could. Around Marcus, I didn't feign composure. I simply was. As time wore on, he shared snippets of his past. During one twilight, with the sunset fading beyond the branches, he admitted, "A crash claimed my spouse and child ages back. I quit the armed forces since I couldn't operate. I relocated to this spot, distant from the bustle, because sympathetic stares tormented me." He halted briefly, then continued, "I recognize the void of isolation no outsider comprehends. That's why I won't abandon you to this solitude." Gazing into his eyes sparked an unforeseen bond. We'd each been wrenched from secure worlds. We both fathomed life's brittleness, and there we sat, inhaling the identical breeze, the mutual quiet, our blemishes seemingly attuned. Recovery didn't bloom swiftly or flawlessly. I still roused in the wee hours. I still quivered at echoes of Ethan's tone. Yet incrementally, those intervals with my mom, my sibling, and Marcus forged tentative progress. For the initial instance post-incident, hope flickered that, aided by loved ones and patience, I might reclaim untroubled breaths. That blemishes signified endurance, not shackles, and I traversed the road to mending alongside others. Weeks blurred amid interrogations with sleuths and restless vigils in pursuit of rest. But a pivotal moment arrived via Detective Patel's call, bearing startling updates. From leads in the Vance's files, they'd unearthed Warren Ashford's true offspring. Hearing how the tycoon, long in anguish, now enfolded his authentic child, swelled emotion in my chest. It touched me deeply that, amid the fraud, a lineage reformed on honest grounds. And beyond my wildest thoughts, this gathering extended to touch my life too. Warren, appreciative of my assistance, impressed by my account, they covered the costs entirely for Brianna's final procedure. On the day my sister headed into surgery, I remained by her side right up to the end. I saw her grin through a blend of anxiety and optimism that shattered me inside. A few weeks on, once the physicians assured us she'd dance once more, I embraced her, my eyes welling up. Brianna wept as well, murmuring repeatedly, "I've been given new life, Chloe. It's all because of you." Deep down, I realized it wasn't solely my doing, but rather the surprising twist fate had thrown our way. At the same time, my connection with Marcus deepened steadily. No hasty vows or hollow assurances marked our path. It unfolded gradually, much like water smoothing rough rock over time. We enjoyed strolls through the forest, quiet moments beneath the night stars, and candid talks free of pretense. I opened up about my worries, and he absorbed them without critique. He shared the grief from his family's loss, and I stood with him amid that lingering void. Duke, his loyal pup, turned into my constant protector. He stuck close, sensing his role in shielding me from any lingering threats. Through that quiet loyalty, I learned I could reclaim a sense of security. One mild spring day, Marcus led me to the lake beside his cabin. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it cast a warm glow across the surface. Duke bounded joyfully nearby, and I sensed a weight lifting, as though the shadows of the past had faded. Marcus grasped my hand, his words shaky as he admitted, "Chloe, after losing my wife and daughter, I figured my days of feeling love were done. Then you showed up at my door on the bleakest night imaginable." He produced a petite velvet case and unveiled a modest ring, elegant in its plainness. "I'm unsure what's ahead, but I want to walk it with you. Will you be my wife?" My eyes filled with tears. For the first time, my battered heart found a secure haven. "Yes, Marcus," I murmured, my voice faltering. "Yes." Our ceremony was small and personal, held in the studio where Brianna had reclaimed her passion after so long away. That day, she moved across the floor with gentle yet resolute grace, each step a testament to vitality. As Marcus held my hand while we observed her twirl, our cheeks damp with emotion, it hit me. We were beholding a wonder, not only hers, but one we all shared. Just a month afterward, as we sorted through the final crates in our chosen cozy home, I clutched a pregnancy test showing a positive result. Stepping onto the veranda, I gazed at the starlit expanse above the meadow. I caressed my abdomen and softly said, "We're all right now. We're protected." After ages, I sensed that this fresh start was genuinely my own, untouchable by anyone. Nowadays, I'm convinced that life sometimes shatters us, not to ruin us, but to clear room for brighter things. I teetered on the edge of utter loss. Yet here I stand, surrounded by a renewed family, genuine affection, and a pulse of optimism within, since the loveliest chapters often emerge from the deepest wreckage. Enjoyed my tale. What city are you tuning in from? Drop by in the comments. If the story resonated, show your support with a super thanks. It helps me deliver more tales like this. Grateful for your kind backing. Can't wait to hear your thoughts below. Check out the 2 fresh life stories on screen. I really suggest them. Plenty more awaits on my channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Catch you for the next one. All my love and appreciation.